Welcome to the Exhaust Note podcast. I am Brynn. This is my friend Aadit. Today we're going to be talking about German cars. So, Aadit, what started your love for German cars?
Well, I would say my love for German cars started from a young age, like many, and I was just passionate about cars in general. But the reason why I was big onto German cars was after I got to watch many like drag races, car reviews, all of that sort. I just found out that they were really interesting and how like German cars from the history of the companies, like when they started to how they came up and how they rose. And then just the way they drive and how passionate other people are about German cars. They're always like German cars have a special feeling to them. And I think hearing that just got the influence onto me as well.
Yeah, all right. So, one thing I noticed while I was preparing to record this episode is that there was a higher concentration of diesel engines in Germany than in a lot of other countries. And why do you think that is?
Well, I can just think of a common example, the Porsche tractor that started it all, right? That was diesel, and I think a lot of German vehicles were very utility oriented at that time. So diesel made more sense for them because of, its high torque, its reliability and all of that. So I think that's the reason why they had a more of a focus on diesel. And then they probably brought that into their road going like normal drivers' cars as time progressed. But and then eventually they would of course shift to gas because of the performance needs. But I think that's why they started with diesel.
Yeah, okay.
So, Bryn, I wanted to ask you, what would your ideal daily driver be if you were here in the US? Like everything considered, it doesn't have to be a family car, but I'm just wondering what would your ideal daily driver be?
Okay. I don't really know. As far as US made vehicles, maybe like probably a Cadillac CT4.
Wow.
Is it, I mean, it's still on the bigger end, but not too long. Utility sedan still has plenty of performance. I think that would be kind of ideal.
Yeah. I was wondering if you lived in America, if you could pick any car, like it doesn't have to be American, but it could be any type of car, but it would be in America based on like what we have here, like our wide open roads in the countryside, the packed urban cities,
Oh,
etc.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the thing. America might be one of the hardest countries to pick a singular car for because it is so big in the diversity in terrain, like forests and highways and cities. So it's hard to pick one car for all of that.
If you could pick maybe, let's say, two cars. You had, let's say you lived in the city, right? And then you had down south of you was the country, and north of you is the main city. And if you could pick two cars for each place, what would it be? And that too, it's not going to be unlimited budget, right? You're going to have to think financially as well. So, of course, not very low, but like, what would be your car in that case? I'm just curious.
Okay, this everything in me is telling me not to say this, but for the country, it's gonna have to be a Dodge Charger
Dodge Charger.
because they, for the straight line speed they offer, they're relatively economical. So, I mean, they're not reliable. Obviously, they don't get good miles per gallon, but it's pretty fast in a straight line. I mean, plus the not the Challenger's a two-door, but the Charger's a four-door, four-seater. So that's plenty of utility out of a supposed to be a sports car.
Yeah.
Uh, for the city, hmm, this is also probably not wise, but Nissan Leaf.
Leaf. All right. I would like to hear your explanation, but I also want to put it out there. Maybe we can maybe move the topic for a second, but a lot of in the EV versus combustion car debate, and then versus the hybrid, which is in the middle, a lot of people are like, well, for example, my neighbors were talking about the Hyundai Ioniq 5, right? It's
Yeah.
all electric, it's 50K, it's a pretty good car, but is it making sense in a financial perspective? Of course, beyond the performance and technology, if you're gonna drive back and forth to work and you're looking for like a car to do that, what's of course you can buy a really cheap gas car like maybe a Nissan Versa or something, right? The cheapest car in
Right.
America. you can buy something a step up, maybe like a Prius or Corolla hybrid as your hybrid. And then for an EV, like you said, the Leaf would be an economical choice, but the Leaf is not cheap compared to the other two options, right?
That's true.
I'm pretty sure it's in the 30s or maybe late 20s. But yeah, so what's your take on that?
Okay, I think for an all gas car. Okay, here's something I don't know. This is a shot in the dark. I don't know if the first Prius was hybrid or not.
It was
Okay, it was hybrid.
so it started all in
So
2000. That was the car that introduced hybrids to the world, right?
right.
It was so popular. I think even pretty much all Priuses they sold so much, and in many countries where it was sold in, it was popular, even though it was not the best looking, maybe not the most cool car per se, but it was popular. Yeah.
Okay, I think mm, for an internal combustion, like just a daily utility car, Mitsubishi Mirage.
Right. The Mitsubishi Mirage.
It
Yeah.
is currently one of, if not the cheapest retail car on the market. It's like 19 grand.
They actually so the Mitsubishi Mirage was pushed up like a grand or two, but the what I mentioned the Nissan Versa, the one with the 5-speed manual, is down in the 17s, 18s. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I would still get a Mitsubishi Mirage in case you live near like, big infrastructure because
Yeah.
it's a smaller car. For hybrid, I think Prius because not just because of the gas mileage and everything, but because it's very aerodynamic. So, Audit, on this daily car topic, what daily driver have you lived in Germany?
All right. This is just my thing because I've been, like we've been discussing, I love German cars and I can't get this out of my mind, right? It would have to be either two cars, either the Porsche 911 Turbo S or the Porsche 911 Carrera T, right? And it would depend what I'm doing, right? Let's say my daily routine is driving from Munich on the Autobahn, right? Down maybe from to another city, Frankfurt or what I would get the Turbo S because that's such an amazing car. Plus, it just feels so practical compared to the other supercars. It drives like a supercar, and it has the performance of a supercar. But I feel like that practicality, like how comfortable it is to drive on the road, is something that the Turbo S has going for it, as well as like the back seats, the front trunk,
That's
right?
true.
So, but the Cura T, if I'm maybe driving through the Black Forest, that car is amazing. Of course, it may not offer the same performance on the Autobahn, but I feel like that car is really just it's a great car and it would have to be a Porsche because it just feels so like German to me. And then maybe if we shift like scale down a little bit, let's say we need to carry more people, I'm probably gonna get an M5. All right, hear me out. Let's say we're driving the new M5, the hybrid, and the touring, right, the wagon.
Yeah.
So the reason I would say that is because it has an electric range, like 50 miles and 40 to 50 miles on electric range. So if we're driving from, let's say, maybe in the city or all that, places where there's strict emission regulations, that's great. And plus, you can sort of cut down on those taxes with that. But on the road, like a station wagon with 700 horsepower is overkill, but it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's a great car. Yeah. What about you? What would you choose?
Okay. This is a good question. I would say a Bentley Continental.
All right.
I mean, it is a Bentley. Bentley is a luxury brand, so it is very comfortable. Plus, I mean, some of the like Continental Super Sports are all-wheel drive. Plus, it has good top end, so like for Autobahn, you could get places fast. Some versions have like cabriolet options, and you could get a flying spur as well, which has 4 seats and a trunk larger than the state of Oklahoma. So I think that would be decently practical. Now, here's the problem though. You mentioned like some cities would have strict emissions regulations. I don't know how you would circumvent that with a W12.
So the new Continentals have ditched W12 in favor for a 4-liter V8 twin turbo with the hybrid system. So again, it's a plug-in hybrid, making in the 700s of horsepower, something 782 if I'm not mistaken, right? I love modern cars. I love this type of cars. So, right, but that car is a great pick, and I love that car. The reason why I wouldn't choose it, like me personally, is because Germany, even though it has the autobahn, people are really forgetting that it has countryside roads, which are so beautiful, right? And they have twists and turns here in America. It's just like here in America, right? So when you're taking your car over those turns, it's so heavy. It's in the 5,000s of pounds, versus the Turbo S is like 2,000 pounds lighter, and it has the same power. It's faster. It drives well, of course, not as comfortable, but you know. And then if I'm getting a plug-in hybrid, I'd rather get the M5 because it's of course very different category. Almost as comfortable, probably more economically advisable, and then it has more space. It's always, of course, it's up to your preference at that point, but yeah.
All right, that's fair. I mean, here's the thing though: the M5, the new one, is also very heavy.
Yeah, it is
It's
very
in fact
heavy.
even heavier than the Continental.
They're
I
about the
think
similar
they're
weight.
similar.
They're very similar considering they're massive plug-in hybrid V8s, right? But I feel like if you're getting an extra actually spacious, not the two seats behind me, don't mistake me. Like it's a four-seater, but the amount of people you're gonna fit in that four-seater is different than what you're fitting in the M5. I feel like for what you're getting with the M5, it may not be a luxury car, like compared to the Bentley. It may not be as comfortable, but I feel like it makes more sense practically. And there is some parts of the M5 that may be like nicer for a lot of people, maybe like the tech or other things like that. But those plug-in hybrids, that's a topic that's really interesting.
Yeah, because you do get additional range and you get additional launch from the electric motor, but it often comes at the cost of weight.
Yeah.
So, what are you willing to pay for the hybrid? Is the thing.
So my family, we own X550E, right? So that sort of BMW's plug-in hybrid combines that six-cylinder, right, turbo with the electric motors and the battery pack. So we love the car for a few reasons, right? Because it's able to get that. Actually, our car gets around 50 miles of electric range on a charge, right? And because of that 50 miles of electric range when we're driving in the city, which is most of the time, we've averaged 89.8 miles per gallon in that car, and it's amazing because the regular X5 gets around 20 to like 22 maybe mpg, right? So it's a lot more efficient, but you have to think about how much are you driving and does that cost outweigh it? Because if you're not driving as much and if you're going to pay an extra maybe like 5 to 10K on the hybrid, is it worth it in that case? Like, for example, the Prius, there's the Prius Prime, right? And the Prius Prime, it has solar panels on its roof and all that fun stuff. It's faster, probably nicer to drive, it's all-wheel drive, but is it worth the extra money you're spending? Because the regular Prius gets you, like I said, 600 miles of range, 57 miles per gallon, and you're saving quite a bit of money. So it really depends on the car and what your budget is at that point.
Yeah. So, let's go ahead and just daily driver thing. What about Japan?
Oh, Japan. All right, that's a fun one because when I went to Japan, I found out that a lot of the roads, even in the countryside, they're really nice, but they're not like the roads here in America. They're not like that wide and that large. So I'm definitely not buying a large luxury car, especially not a plug-in hybrid in Japan. I'm thinking maybe something more drivable, something that's more efficient, right? I'm gonna say the GRERs for
Oh, yeah.
Japan, right? You know, you get that. The reason why is because you get that sort of small car feel, so you're able to drive it in Tokyo without feeling like you're in a skyscraper of a car. It's small, it's relatively efficient, of course, and it's a manual. And when you drive on those Japanese roads in a manual, it's like wonderful, right? And I just feel like it's a type of car that would go well. And this is just a hot take here, but does a car from the country it's built for feel more for that country?
Ooh, that okay. That really depends because sometimes sometimes there's badge swapping where like the Buick Cascada is the Vauxhall Cascada. It's the same car, but hmm, I feel like that is most true in America because of our countryside roads, and we just have huge V8s, and it wouldn't make sense unlike Japan where they have the curvy mountain roads.
Right. I mean, honestly, what I'm thinking, there are some countries. Usually, America is the car where it fits, the country where it fits the most. I'm actually going to say America is the country where it fits the least, depending on your use case scenario, right? Of course, if you're here in the country, right, and if you're doing utilitarian tasks, of course, getting an American car is great. But there are so many other vehicles that are made for America that are not American brands, right? Like for example, like a Honda Ridgeline. A lot of Americans love the Honda Ridgeline, even though it's not like a real truck for them. They love it. Of course, it's small enough. It does the job. It's more efficient, right? It's a pretty good car, and that's why I feel. But in Germany, on the other hand, if you want that German car, this is great. I mean, it depends, like on the country, right? Uh, it's a really funny question, and that takes a question that we should like think through, maybe, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think you're right on Japan. I think Japanese cars do have a feel about them where they fit the country.
Yeah. And I think that's true for a lot of other products beyond just cars, right? I mean, I could go on and on, but in China, let's say, right? If you own a Chinese phone in China, it feels better. Like if you're owning a Huawei phone in China, things are more integrated. Same way, owning a Chinese car in China makes so much more sense. It's a lot cheaper. And have you seen some of those Chinese cars out there? They're like amazing.
We saw a YouTube video of like a motor show in China. It's very interesting what they have up there.
And I feel we're missing out here in the US not getting
Yeah,
those cars because in China they're getting a lot of cars from around the world, but we're not getting any Chinese cars right as of now. But I really hope like those Chinese vans, I want to sit in the back of them and just sleep. They're so nice.
yeah. Here's another thing. Okay, I've thought about this multiple times. If we can have other brands in America that aren't from America, then why have we not had a French car in like 30 years?
We've had a Bugatti.
Oh, technically Bugatti, but like
Yeah.
not a supercar.
Right. I mean, like a lot of those cars, for example, in the EU, they're sold, but I think it's just about American consumers because they're gonna stick to what they love. See, Chinese cars are really new and revolutionary, but some of those French cars, they're good. Like we were seeing a Citroen hybrid casually passing our M5 on the autobahn at like 140 miles an hour. It's a tiny hybrid, but okay, it does the job pretty good. Right? They're good cars, but I feel like here in the U.S., if you could buy that like small crossover hybrid here, people are gonna say, no, I want the RAV4 hybrid. I want the CRV hybrid. I trust those more, and I'm not getting any more features. It's not something revolutionary, and is it really worth all the logistical implementations to like bring a French brand all the way from France or like ship it from Europe down here to the Americas? Is it worth it? And it's also consumers. People love what they love, and they just stick to that, right? So I think that's where
True.
it's sort of confusing.
I think the not just the American consumer market. I think car buyers in general are not open enough to warrant us having Geely and Renault and all those other brands still in America.
Yeah, and I feel that's really true. Like, for example, we talk about Japanese cars and we talk about Korean cars, right? For people to get oriented with Japanese cars, it took them a while, but when they saw how Japanese cars were more reliable, more efficient, they just made sense. Especially when things were limited here in America, like the gas prices, right? So buying a Japanese car made a lot of sense over an American car. But as time went on, right, when we saw the introduction of Korean cars like Hyundai and Kia, people were not as trustworthy. They're like, is it as reliable as Japanese cars? Is it worth it? Maybe it's a bit cheaper, but is it really worth me changing? But now I've seen people are adopting it across the world, right? And they're sort of considering them as peers or equals, right? Because before buying a Korean car was like, oh, unless it's that much better, I'm not buying it. Like back in the day, even 2018, buying a Hyundai Palisade or Kia Telluride, even though it was technically a better car than a Honda Pilot or Highlander, Toyota Highlander, people went for it because it just seemed better value for money. And as it was reliable and people had trust into it, it sort of built up. And same thing for like Korean cars now, and even in India and countries around the world, where people have only seen Japanese cars, they're sort of leaning towards Korean cars because they make sense. They all are good cars, and they're sort of starting to understand. So I feel like when you bring the Chinese cars here, it'll be people will take a while, but when they see that, oh, this car has great features, I'm paying less money and it just makes more sense, then they'll maybe go for it after there's enough trust for the car. So it's trust and maybe how long they've been in the market. Introducing it here would be great.
Here's another thing about French cars. What is your take on hydropneumatic suspension?
I don't know enough about hydropneumatic suspension to.
It's I mean, admittedly I'm not an expert on it, but it's Citroens have used it for a very long time, but it's suspension that kind of uses water to help it dampen more.
I think that's a. Listening to it now, it makes a lot of sense, but I feel like what Porsche has done with the new Taycans and Panameras, right, where it individually adjusts the height of each like wheel. For example, when it makes a lot of sense, right? When you're opening the car, you get in, it raises so that it's easier for you to get into those low cars. And as you're driving, it'll scan the road ahead of you so that it can sort of move. If you're taking a corner, it'll move in the opposite direction so that you don't have to roll during those corners. And it like when we're used to those technologies, any other technology like sort of pales in comparison to those, right? So it's always about like again like relative technologies and how much they make sense. But of course, maybe they are more comfy. But with this new introduction from Porsche, I don't think anything else makes sense.
That's fair, but do these other companies have the money to match Porsche's technology?
Well, that's another thing. It's also the price of the cars and what they're aiming for. Porsche
Right.
cars are very expensive, right?
Right.
But maybe for a lot of countries where cars are more affordable, that could be great because maybe I don't know how exactly it works and how if it's really better, but for example, in India, there's lots of potholes. The roads aren't the smoothest in many places, not in all places, but many places it's like that, right? So maybe if that makes it better for a lot of consumers to like ride in, that might be good.
Audit and I had a great time chatting, so we actually have part two to this conversation coming out in a few weeks. Thanks for watching, and let me know what your favorite German car is in the comments.